Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm not going to try to take long because I do have an appointment today that I got to get to on time. So I'm going to try to be brief as possible. But I just wanted to bring up this conversation because, for the past few years, um, we've been hearing from a certain sector online specifically that seems to um, want to disassociate themselves from being educated. And, there's some of us that come across people in our communities, and I've seen it happen or heard of it happening with other communities as well. But it's as if anyone who goes to get an education, meaning they're furthering their in depth analysis, their thinking patterns, um, abilities to, I don't know, physics, engineering, and sometimes you have people who are known as the ignorant. When I think of people coming out of my dad's era, though, I think that's a different time because education, it wasn't something that was not only not championed by different communities at sometimes, but sometimes it was championed because you know these are people coming out of a period where they said you can't be something because of your skin color, or you can't be something because you're a woman. So that's a societal thing, putting um, their beliefs on you or what they think should be happening as a sense of control, sometimes a sense of insecurity, sometimes it's about keeping belief systems the same, even though it's in your face 24/7 a day. They still want to promote the belief systems, and sometimes if one or a few do it, then that means it's possible, right? It's not saying everyone can, but it's saying if a few can or one can, then it's definitely possible. And I think throughout human history, we've seen that regardless if it was a man or a woman, right? We've seen the possibilities play out for different humans. But when I'm hearing this, or when I see this, sometimes I see this from people who have not truly either pursued college, didn't finish college, never went to college, people who seem that they probably have some insecurity issues. Um, I know in my community, it's usually men telling women stuff like this, but some of them probably don't know. There's other women in the community who have this same thought process, or um, you know, it's automatically assumed you think you're better than someone. But again, I'm not saying it's synonymous to Black community because I've definitely I know it's in the Hispanic community as well. It's just we're so vocal about it online, and I don't know why people ain't embarrassed about that shit and saying that shit out loud, and not having discussions. Calling discussions like a PTA meeting or a council meeting, calling that in your city, and maybe having a virtual thing there, but having it online, where now it seems, or it is too, but it seems like there's just a battle um, every step of the way. But when I've seen this from those type of people, I'm just like, what the hell are they even talking about, right? Because when you go to college, and this is how I know some of these people either never went to college, don't know what it's about, and I would even say when we're even on the certification level, this is the same thing. It's just you went the certification route. And it's just very interesting that um, they'll say this, and it's like, but if you go to college, you're literally going to study in a specific field, right? I didn't go to college to be a professor. I didn't go to college to be a teacher, maybe, right? I probably went to college to be a civil engineer, or I went to college um, to, learn to be a historian or whatever, you know, you want to be. That's why we call it majors and minors. You can major in civil engineering, but you may minor in. I'm just going to put it out there, just to give you the idea of college, how it works for you that never went. You have minors, and I may say, well, I want to minor in mass communications or something like that. So it means that when I go to school, I'm only taking classes for that particular degree field, meaning all of my education is going to be surrounded by the classes that I need to take to get the degree specifically in the field. For my major would be civil engineering. So, yes, some colleges have screwed around students with money, even. And that's why in some of the videos before I spoke about how college tuition was extended. I know in the early 2000s, and this was after I went to, I was in college or whatever. And about a year or so, a few years later, they were extending college for degrees that should be 4 year into 5 years. So now, and on top of that, tuition was rising, and that's why I also say, for the millennial class specifically, there should have been a bailout, or there should be, to get us in the economy. That's the whole purpose. I think it should be about. I don't think all millennials though. I think from a certain time period coming out of the 2008 crash, I think, I really disagreed with the whole banking bailout and all that. But if you really understood, or if you've seen during COVID how exposed we are, how intertwined a lot of things are with uh, the banks, and federal government is intertwined so much that they couldn't figure out how to send people checks that didn't have bank accounts with certain banks, you know? So, um, so it's just interesting. One second, guys. Sorry, there's a something saying I didn't complete something. I'm like, no, I did. I got a certificate. Further, talking about education, you know, um, having a certificate because it's something you're specifically learning. You're not looking to be smarter in everything possible. But there's some people who like that. Like I like to be, uh, have my my intellect in different types of things, whether it's political arenas, um, infrastructure, social. I'm not into like gossip and all that type of stuff. I really don't get too deep or dwell too deep in like celebrity gossip and stuff like that. I think the only thing that I listen to, that I really listen to, is just an ASMR artist, and they're doing it just because it's a part of their ASMR. But that's probably the only time I like listen to some type of gossip. But outside of that, like I don't give a fuck. I really don't care about none of that stuff. It doesn't move me or shake me. But when I seen that stuff, I'm like, well, dude, because mostly it's guys. it's mostly guys that say this when I come across this. And it's like, what is your point here? What are you trying to convey in your message here, that a degree, having a degree doesn't make you smarter, but it's only showing that maybe you should have went to school. Maybe you should have pursued school beyond high school. Did someone pass you in high school? Did they pass you through? Because we know that's happening, right? To come up with some type of thought process. Did you not pass a certain test or something? Is there a reason why you seem disgruntled at people who pursued a degree? Because sometimes you got to understand, parents, again, like I said, my parents came from a different time. So, maybe your parents wasn't there in that way. Maybe they didn't understand education like some of our other parents did. They came from a different time, and the point wasn't just about telling you to go to school and get work. Again, that was an era, and it was a different type of economy at that time. So I don't get down on people like that, because I can understand what was happening. And sometimes when you read and you just try to get knowledge beyond your circles, you can understand those things because you understand the context, the art, right? But even for me, I went to college. I didn't finish college, but I never stopped learning for myself, you know. But I don't ever knock college for anybody, because outside of the degree that you're trying to obtain, depending on the type, um, you are still, looking to have a social life as well. I was social, but not really social, you know, because there was just other things I was dealing with, and I didn't care to be too social. I was gonna go for a sorority, but I was like, ain't nobody about to be putting their hands on me like that. Like, we all gonna die up in here. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, that's how I'm like, no, we all about to die up here. You touch me, like everybody, we all go. Like, I do not care. You're not about to put your hands on, you know. But it's just interesting to hear, again, mostly guys say stuff like that. And it's like, do you even know what pursuing a degree is about? It doesn't say you're the smartest, right? Because there's many people that are going for that degree decades after decades, depending on how long that degree or that course is taking place. So it's not saying you're the smartest in that, but it is saying, um, in this particular field, again, I'm just use civil engineering. As a civil engineer, you are 4 years smart. So let's say it takes 4 years, smarter than someone who's never taken civil engineering. Now, are there people out there who have some type of gift of gab? Yeah, there is. But sometimes some of those people have learned because their parents have those skills. Their parents, um, are engineers. Like my dad, for example, he's not an engineer on paper, but because he went out and got certain experiences, he knows how to do a lot of different things, right? He doesn't have an electrician's certification. He doesn't have a general contractor certification. But again, he came up in a different time where a lot of that stuff probably wasn't required to have like it is today in certain states and cities. You know what I'm saying? So again, for someone to be talking about degrees and no education, like, you got to be understanding of context. You got to be understanding of things, right? Now, you have kids. who learn from their parents and they seem to have this gift of gab. But some kids are just truly interested in what their parents are doing, so they pick those things up, and they become really good in that field if they choose to pursue it, or say, hey, I don't have to, but maybe now I have to go and get a general contractor's license, you know. But when someone says this, does having a degree make you smarter? And it's like, yeah, in that field, because all I'm doing when I go to college, all my focus is on is this particular field in every single way possible that the professors that are teaching me, because again, it ain't just one big class. And again, I don't, some of these people, I think they just never went to college. They can't possibly have went to college. Some may have and just say, well, I don't feel smarter. Were you paying attention? Were you detailed in your work? Did you stop only in the classroom? Or did you go out and experience some things? Did you go out and say, I want to learn a little bit more in depth of this? Were you in those libraries consistently? Because again, I'm going to tell you, some of these people weren't doing that type of work. I am a self-taught person, even though I pursued college, didn't graduate with a degree, didn't get a degree, didn't obtain that because I dropped out probably my third year. When I came back to California, they were trying to the credits I had weren't going to amount, so they were pushing me back down, and I was like, I'm not going to allow that to happen. So that's why I really didn't pursue further, because I'm like, I'm not about to let these people play with, tell me I got to still pursue loans and stuff. Like, I'm already loaned out. Like, heck no. You know what I'm saying? But pursuing the field, you are studying that, and then your courses are, depending on if they're not trying to take advantage of you. That's why when you're young and you're getting to college, hopefully your parents understand it as well. You have some really good counselors, you got really good people, so you can understand how to put your classes together to where you're getting closer to your goal. Now, again, that happens because the school sometimes is trying to milk the most money out of your children because they're putting them in classes that they do not need. They're putting them in classes where, again, now you got 5 years to complete a 4 year degree, 5 or 6 years, and you're not a damn doctor. You're not going to be a doctor, right? Again, there's so many different fields and different types of fields in certain industries that you need a degree for. And again, you're studying, you have this focus, and I'll just speak how it should be. You should have this concentrated focus in your degree field to where once you graduate, that's how you would obtain a job. Because again, at a point in time, jobs would require degrees. There's still jobs that require degrees. Now, in my particular field, like information technology, I personally don't think a degree matters because it's not like it was back then, right? Through coming up probably during the Microsoft era, and I mean like Microsoft, growing and starting to get out there, that's what I mean, right? Um, so it's just interesting that um, today it changed so much so where you can go for a CompTIA certifications. You can go for your ISACAs, right? Your PMs, your PMPs. Um, these are all areas, and you would pursue them with your own money. Because I paid for all of my certifications, and I made sure, like, I'm not about to be failing none of this stuff. I ain't about to be failing and I done paid $300+ for the certification, $700, you know, and you get a certification, in a tech, area today. That certification will and have gotten people in positions of VPs, CISOs, VPs of information technology, managers, directors. And even if you're not there, if you're engineers, certain other titles that may still be in engineering or analyst, you still collecting six figures, just for saying I put let's just say you spent $2,500 on a boot camp that was for 3 to 6 months, maybe 18 months, right? You rather do 18 months than to do 4 years, but it was rigorous training into something that you were trying to pursue in the tech field, or 3 months or 6 months, because sometimes it doesn't take that long. It's just to get you in the door. You pass the certification, you spend another 500 or 300 for the certification. So now you up, let's say 28 to 3,000, right? Then you go ahead and, pursue your degree, or your certification. And let's say you get into your field and, a couple years down the line, let's say less than 5 years later, you're at six figures or so. Again, depending on the job you take, depending on what it is, but you still have to pursue your craft, meaning in your particular field, even in the information security arena or cybersecurity arena. If you're an analyst, you are focusing on how to be a better analyst, how to look at IOCs, and how to be better at detecting, reaching out to people to help train them or show them how to properly do something on a computer, or or how they should use their password. You're helping in a different way surrounding your particular title or your specific duties versus an engineer who may talk to more of the executive levels, who may be setting up more of the engineering tools or whatever they're doing, compared to a director who's just there to direct, but you may can lean on them because they have some knowledge. And some people in this IT world, again, they never pursued degrees, but they are making really good money because their keen focus was just learning the technology. Something I do. I'm just tinkering and tinkering. So that's why I don't have time for a lot of gossip and BS that goes around. I don't get caught up in all that stuff. Sometimes, if I do have something on, it's background noise. But I don't really care to have it on because I'm really someone who's about my craft. So when you say having a degree makes you smarter, yeah, but it's not saying you are smart. It really depends on you, the person, continuing to pursue and refine your own craft in whatever you're excited about or you feel that's your purpose. That's really what it is. So, yes, it makes you smarter. Now, if you're someone who has this hood mentality and think that you're smarter, again, you're street smart, right? Once you step up on that curb, it's a whole different world to some of you. Let's just keep it real. So, some of these people be talking like that. And again, I'm not saying it's just black community, because I've seen it in other communities how they treat people who do pursue a better education for themselves, because this isn't just generally what happens. And unfortunately, sometimes it seems to be mostly guys, not saying that women don't do it, because they do. There's women who are just immediately, um, think you're better than someone because you went to pursue your education, or, even when you come back to your home, there may be aunts and uncles and parents who just want to challenge you, because to them it's like, well, you went to go get this degree, even though they know this is what you needed to pursue to help the family line, because that's what it also is about, right? And I'll even say, before the times that we experience when we're pushing more degrees in education, education wasn't a privilege to everyone centuries upon centuries ago. It was never a privilege. So these are things you got to take into context. Back then, it may not have been a degree, but you go into a certain school, or being able to be educated in a certain way, you were looked at as someone on a different level than others. This is just the truth. But again, only in specific areas. Now, one thing that someone with a degree may not have, meaning you went to this school, but the school doesn't give you real world training, meaning They're not saying, okay, and again, there are some degree programs in college where, like for doctors or dental students, maybe, for example, and there's still, boot camp type of places for stuff like that. But let's say you're a doctor or you're becoming a high level nurse or something, they do put you what they call clinical trials. I believe that's the term for it, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But you're going into a real world situation now, so you can actually get the experience, so you can walk right into a job. But some degree programs don't do that. So again, it's not everyone has that experience, but the people who don't, they're the only ones who, again, this is not new, but I'm when I was out of high school going into college, and knowing some of my peers were saying how it was tough getting a degree because they were already graduating, and I mean tough getting a job, but it was because they would tell you didn't have enough experience. So now you spent all this money, depending on the wealth of your family, because that's another thing. You spent all this money, now you have this loan, let's just say, and you went to pursue a degree that didn't really give you real world experience. So now you're trying to get a job, and they're saying, well, you don't have the experience. And you're like, well, how the hell did I get the experience? You know, So it's really different. But again, if you're not someone who pursued college, or you just disgruntled, or you feel like you should be the smartest in the room, because sometimes some of these people just want to feel the smartest, be the smartest in the room. Sometimes it's the same thing. Everybody maybe believe some people may believe they're street smart, and some people be thinking some of the stuff y'all say is really profound, and it's like, but it's not. It's really not, because I can compare what you say again to centuries ago, where maybe there were some people who were really smart in their own way, again, but they didn't have these type of college pursuits or higher educational pursuits. I can compare you to probably that, but some people know when they talk about being dumb, or idiots or whatever. Sometimes it's just people's behaviors. It's nothing to do with a degree or being smarter. Sometimes your behavior makes you an idiot or a dumbass or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's really sometimes I feel that's what it really is. And then when you talk about people working together, there's people who are good at different things. So, for example, if we look at the whole Artemis 2, you know, beyond just the astronauts that went up there, they may had certain specialties that they were good in, right? They were smart in, the best in, because their only focus was about that particular role that they would play at some point in their life, which came out when they went into Artemis 2. And then everyone in the control rooms, everyone from launch, every piece comes together as one goal, one mission, one team, but you have your individual specialty, your expertness, being smart. Now, why would I want a street dude who never pursued college? Let's look at it from that point of view. Never pursued college or any of that. He may have some, he may or may not be smart, but we're talking about the average street dude today. We're not talking about a dude that says, "Oh well, I went to college and I went to military." If you want to call yourself hood still, then that's fine. That's on you. But I would never do that to myself. You graduated out of that. But let's just say your average dude that be on here pumping up rappers all day. Why would you want somebody like that working on a spaceship if he never pursued education enough? And he up here talking about having a degree doesn't make you smarter. Like he doesn't understand. It does in your particular field. It's not about being smarter in everything, because that's not what you went to school for, to pursue everything. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. I may extend it a little bit more, but I've been seeing this again, and I just wanted to give my little 2 cents on it. And hopefully, those who follow me understand the intellectual discussion here. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You guys have a good one.